Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and now to continue with part 2 of the formation flying tuition. Next one, I'm just going to talk about formation management. All right, we'll get to the nitty-gritty of how you fly and where you line up a little bit later on. But first of all, just a little bit about the formation calls. And then remember, in the last presentation, in presentation 5, everything will come together. So you have to go through 1, 2, 3, and 4 to be able to grasp actually the total meaning of presentation 5. Okay, formation calls. Lead is the only one that gives commands, either by radio or by hand signal. Now, you know, the old thing of showing how to turn and go forward, we'll talk about that. It is not ideal if you're, for instance, flying in a difficult environment, but if you can't use the radio, then obviously hand signals can do this well. But normally if the formation is too big, then you can't do that. So for number 2 and number 3, no problem, they can see the hand signals from the cockpit, but not necessarily depending if it's a single cockpit or whether you sit next to each other and. So for now, let's work on the radio transmissions. The command call as the following elements. So you would start off by the name, the instruction, and the command. The name. Who are we talking to? Now, each formation traditionally would have a name. So let's say here in the Free State, we're going to call it the cheetah formation. All right. Don't get into, let's just leave it there. It's an aircraft formation, okay? Cheetah formation. What is the instruction? What do you want to do? We want to turn right. But when must we turn right is at the command. So you will say, cheetah formation, right turn, go. The go is the command. And on the go, you're going to initiate starting the roll in to the right. You know, later on, you will have to do the time differences as well. For instance, let me just stick here for a second. I said there must be a prompt between the action initiate and the lead because, you know, people might need to hear and they got to comprehend and then they go. So you will say, for instance, cheetah formation, right turn, go. And then in the mind, you count 2, 3, and you go on. 2, 3, and enter. Roll out, go. 2, 3, and now we start rolling out. In other words, between the go and the initiation of that specific, exercise, there must be a little bit of a gap. But that's a constant gap. And as the leaders and the different other aircraft in the formation get used to each other, they will get used to the commands. All right, but the name, what are we going to do? And go. Go is that. Smoke on, go. Cheetah formation, descend, go. Cheetah formation, climb, go. Everything, go. Go means that is then the command prompt. This is, and then that little pause, and there we go. As we see here, lead counts by himself, and so do others, 1001, 1002, and then initiate. And as I said, I just said, go, 2, 3, and the action. Okay. Okay. Line astern flying needs no calls to precede the actions. Nobody can see you. It's line astern. It's actually quite easy. So if the leader wants to turn left, he simply just start slowly rolling in left, and the rest of the formation will follow. You don't need to call that. If you want to call that, it's the same. Cheetah formation, left turn, go. And then you can start roll in. So it's not needed, but it doesn't mean that you need not to do it. In the beginning, we actually like to call it so that you can get used to the fact something is going to happen. But if you sit line astern and you keep that picture and that picture changes there, you just stay in the position for that picture. All right. Other formation calls. Before lead asks for start clearance, he will say formation, check-in. After start, before taxi, formation check-in. And then when they're ready for takeoff, the last one, in this case, we've got a 3 ready. Okay, let's just do that. Before we start up, formation, check in. Everybody's radios are working. Then they'll switch the radios off. The lead will do, let's say it's star checks with one of the bigger towers or whatever the case might be. No problem with that. They will just listen in and get the information. Radios off, everybody start. After start, on. After start, ready for taxi, lead will say formation, cheetah formation, check in. And then the check in is in sequence. Number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How many ever there are. Sometimes one is a little bit late and sometimes not online. And when there's this awkward long silence and you would say, cheetah formation, check in, nothing, then maybe number 3 comes up, number 3. Okay, so at least lead now knows. But given a reasonable bit of time, you want the people to check in sequence. All right, here's the tip. If the people call in 5, 2, 3, 4, once everybody is called in, lead again will say, cheetah formation, check in. And this time it will go 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever the case might be. All right, but there's a check-in call. And then when we want to go and start up, remember, we're first going to do our power check. Once you're finished with your power check, 2 ready, 3 ready. And you know how many? At this stage with the 3 ship, we know number 3 is ready. Lead can now plan for the takeoff. Okay, lead does all the radio work and has a deputy appointed to remind him should he slip up on the unheard radio communique. There might be other communication coming in, lead didn't pick it up, blah, blah, blah. There is somebody listening out. But listen now, you do not let anybody else in the formation do any radio work. That's not good procedure. Lead is the man that does the radio work and do everything. I see a lot of times people fly in this loose gaggle or loose formation, and number 2 is doing that to number 3. No, number 1, you are the leader, you're the brains, you're the eyes, you make the decisions, and therefore you call the actions. And that also means that you do radio calls. Don't expect number 2 or 3 or 4 to do radio calls on your behalf to whoever it might be. Right, last aircraft calls lined up on the runway for ready, and then the lead will just say lead rolling. All right, so last one is up. Depending whether you're going to all open up to full throttle and then release brakes, I don't suggest that in the beginning. Lead will just say, after you heard your last aircraft calls ready, in other words, they lined up, and we'll do that in the next sequence, then lead will just simply open up the throttle, the aircraft will be rolling, and now there will be the spaces in the takeoff. And in the beginning, it's not a takeoff formation. It is the lead will run, then there's a gap, number 2 will run, and. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. In the prescribed manner, each action, power reduction, level off, initiating the climb, term left, term right, all that kind of stuff. Just a quick reminder, you're not going to necessarily give an MLA, a mean line of advance. Because remember, in the close formation, the number 2 and 3 and whoever else is there, they've got only eyes on the leadership. You don't want them to have their eyes inside and tune and fiddle and anything. Right? So that's why we normally have and you'll press a button, you'll go over to communication on the internal frequency, but lead is the man that's listening out on the bigger picture. Okay, nonetheless. But everything, level off, go. Cheetah formation, initiate climb, go. Don't forget the go as the action command. And I know it sounds silly in the beginning for let's say, rather unimportant stuff like level off. Level off means level off and you're going to level, but get used into the fact, leader, get used to the fact that you call the formation name, what you want to do, and then you give the command, the action command, go. All right. The brake when during the certain cheetah formation, stand by for the brake, And then, once you're there, and we'll go through that, you, for instance, say 2 and 3 brake, and 1 brake if there was only 3. Or, as in the case, as I said here, the outside, then, and then the rear to the front. Whoa, okay. So a lot of people would think, yeah, but lead must brake first. Lead doesn't brake. Remember, we peel off from the outside. And then if let's got 4 in a row, and you only need to do it's a rear 2 that will brake, and then the front 2 that will brake. Okay, that's, look, there's certain ways that you cannot change the brake sequence, but I suppose there's some that you can tweak slightly. But let's have a look at that. If we look here in the first one, there is the box formation that I was talking about. So lead calls cheetah formation, standby for the brake. 2 and 3, brake. And that means they brake away, and now this element stays over. Lead and 4, brake, and these 2 together will do their brake sequence. If there was only 3, then obviously this last one wouldn't be part of the deal. If you look at from the rear, this is how it will look. The 2 side ones will peel off. Then you've got a line and stern formation, and they will just do their separate brakes. It is very, very important. It's easy when you're sitting on the outside, let's say in the number 2 position and the number 3 position, because you can't brake towards the formation. I mean, that doesn't make sense. So if you call the brake, it's easy. They will do that and then pitch. Remember, a turn is first a roll and then stop the roll, and it's a pitching movement. So when you go 2 and 3 brake, they put in their max bank and they brake off. Now 1 and 2 is there. Which way is lead going to brake? Now let's just have a look what I've done here and the sequences. The odd numbers braking to the left, and the even numbers, yeah, they braking to the right. It may not be how it would be ideal when you do that. You must just brief on it and make sure. Remember in the numbering of the formation where you've got even numbers and odd numbers, and then odd, even in the center, that kind of thing, that, you know, you sort of work out. No problem there. Brake, odds to the left, evens to the right. Except if you want to say lead braking left, 1 and 4 brake. Then number 4 knows that lead is going to go left, he's got to go right. Or if you say lead going right, be very, very specific to left and right. Because if both brake to the same, it might just mean that the last aircraft, this number 4, is blind to number 1. And that's where accidents come from. All right. Clear? Precise. Who are you talking to? What is it you want to do? Go. And in this stage, with the brake, you don't say brake, go. You say brake. It's brake. Sick. Sick. You're going out. That's the idea. Or slow, or whatever. But you will brief. Normally, it looks nice. The aircraft peel off like that. The one doesn't climb and the other one descend. It's just one of those things. All right. When we look at leadership, your functions, your calls, and your responsibilities, then let's have a little bit of a look here. Leader responsibilities must plan the sort in terms of position, timing, execution, and the requirements. He must properly and fully brief the entire formation from the beginning to the end in a progressive manner. What I'm meaning by that is that you don't skip processes. You've got to brief it in the sequence of things happening. And then once you're finished with the sequence, then you come back to stuff like airmanship and emergencies and, you know, that anomalies, if you wish. But go through the sequence first so that everybody understands from we do the pre-flight, we're standing in front, we wave to each other that we can start up, radio check-in, start up, check-in, and so. It's got to be right. Lead has got to call the right stuff. 2 must know what to expect. 3 must know. Everybody must know what to expect in the correct sequence. And you must listen, because if lead makes a mistake in his talking, then it's an anomaly. Now, if lead says break and it looks like he's breaking right, then don't break right. Rather, go straight or avoid him. Okay, people make mistakes, but you've got to have an open mind, and you've really got to listen and think. Brief on emission, brief on emergency handling. Who will stay with the aircraft if there's an aircraft going down? You know, you're sitting in the 3-ship or 4-ship. Number 2 has got an anomaly. They've got to go and do a precautionary landing or a forced landing or whatever the case might be. Who stays? Because everybody mustn't stay there. You know, what is going to happen to the rest of the formation? Flying bigger formations such as 16 ships and even up into the 50 ship and all that I had the opportunity to fly in, only one person. And then only one person takes over the command and control for the aircraft that has got a problem, because they will relay, look at their position, what are they okay, and then do the planning on. The rest of the formation onto. So it's odd that if you've got a sizable formation that the leader must stay with whoever. If the lead goes down, then fine. You know, whoever can go with it, you pick. But normally in a bigger formation, we would say, if lead goes down, number 3, you're going to stick with lead. Number 2, you've got lead of the rest of the formation and you're carrying on. Or we would, for instance, say, if anybody else pops out, I want number 3 or number 2 to stay with him. Just nominate and then reshuffle the formation from there. Got to brief. Act as the eyes, the ears, the collective cognitive entity of the formation, making decision, giving commands in a proper way. Think of that. We are a formation of 3 aircraft. Number 2 on the right-hand side of the lead and number 3 on the left-hand side of lead. They are blind, except they can see lead. They do not look out for other aircraft. They don't necessarily listen out for other aircraft. They don't use their peripheral vision except to try and stay in the picture that they've got to stay. So lead has got a serious responsibility to ensure that the safety of the rest of the formation. Monitor any threat to the formation, monitor errors and aid correction. Fly smoothly. Here we go. Fly smoothly, taking into consideration the position and the difficulties. And in the first presentation, I was talking about the inside turns, which is a shorter route and a longer route, and the power requirements. The quickest way to train a leader is to let him fly number 2 or number 3, just for a sortie or 2. They will quickly appreciate how lead should speak, and that you can't just go in and out as a leader. Lead must be very precise. Cheetah formation, left turn, go, and then 2, 3, and then start easing it in. You didn't whip it in. It's easy. Every time we take somebody and we put him the very first sorties in the lead, they have got no appreciation of the difficulties of the rest of the members. So before you make somebody a lead, put them in the 2 or 3 or, well, not necessarily 4 position, 2 or 3 position, and let them feel what it is to have more power, less power, and the difficulties. And once they appreciate that, you can do the lead. We train the leaders as well. Lead must understand sequentiality, the logics, the safety, and it's not just bungle in there, you're the worst formation flyer, therefore we make you the lead. No. All right, we can go into. Makes all the radio calls, communicates with ATC, and remember the moment that you're in a formation, then it's one call sign, and whatever ATC is, that stays there, because the rest have got eyes and ears only for number 1. Number 1 is the eyes and the ears, the decision making, and. Navigate on behalf of the formation. And you've got a call for Frida's checks. So you want the rest of the formation to do a field check, and they're sitting in very tight. Then you will say, Cheetah formation, Loose position, check fuel. And what will come? Number 2, this is my status. Number 3, this is my status. Number 4, this is my status. Well, it happens. Number 1 said, we're all going to have 50 gallons on board. Number 2's got 50 gallons, but number 3, for some other unknown reason, only got 30 gallons on board. Whose problem is that? It is lead's problem. So you do the FRIDAS checks on their behalf, and you call what you want from them. Okay? But you can't expect somebody to sit in a closed formation and then look inside. If number 2 and number 3 takes their heads off lead out there is going to be some other crash. You're either going to fly into lead or you're going to fly out of formation. You cannot take your eyes off lead. Listen carefully. Before you do that, you've got to loosen up. And now we peep and look, and peep and look. That is that's the safe way to do it. All right. Okay. For formation changes, it is not advisable that lead changes during a sortie. Okay. Should it become necessary? Now remember that sometimes for practice purpose we want to make, let's say, this is the case. We've got the lead up here, and this is number 2. Okay, they're not. I'm just doing it for the camera purposes, like that. This is now lead, and this is number 2. But all that you have to do is go past. Then this can be lead, and this can be number 2. Now a changeover of leadership like that can be given, but then it has to be in the following manner. Lead indicates a radial lead changes must take place. He instructs the new lead to check fuel, temperature, pressure, and so on. Because he's going to give it over. He indicates the way home or forward. So you say to him, Lanceria is, okay, don't use radials, because then the man has got to add 180 degrees. Give him QDMs, or at the best, just say to him, bearing home that. All right. Or we over so-and-so if it's a known area. So orientate the other one. He says then to the other one, you are lead, I'm number 2. This is then repeated. So here we go, sitting there. All right, here they're flying in formation. This one is the lead. He says, all right, we're going to hand over lead, check your fuel. He bleeds off a little bit. He's got insight, he's ready. Then lead says, okay, you are number 1, I'm number 2. This guy repeats, I'm number 1, you number 2. And this guy who's now the new leader, remember, if he was sitting in the number 2 position, he would be sitting like this. The moment it says, okay, you are now number 2, I am lead, you look in front, and you take over steady flight. The position is still like that. This one is now number 2, and this one will slowly fall back. This one carry on with a power setting that is agreed for lead, and this one falls back into whatever position. The VIC formation, the liner abreast, it would be very strange in a leadership change to go to anything else. Normally, the leadership change, we take the leadership into a changed VIC position. Very easy, very straightforward. Then once they're in the VIC, then you can shunt them around. You know the boss. Line astern, go. You know, line abreast, go. Whatever. Okay? Echelon starboard, go. Echelon port, go. And. The Leo lead immediately looks ahead, and he now becomes the brains. Number 2 immediately assumes the position and fly on the lead. And that is obviously seriously important. A couple of tips that was given. So now we've got the first presentation, we've got the second presentation. The third and fourth presentation is going to give more information, and then we're going to knit together in presentation number 5. See you in presentation 3.